Hi everyone, Ted Wyman here from the Winnipeg Sun with another edition of Jet Setting. I'm along with Sun hockey reporter Scott Billeck. And Scott, let's break down how the Jets have looked recently. It's been win loss, kind of topsy turvy in some ways, where they seem to get outchanced in the games that they win, and they
Yeah.
seem to be getting more shot attempts in the games that they lose. How do you figure all that, how that works?
Yeah, it's a weird part of the game, right? I mean, yeah, if you watched Wednesday's 3-2 loss to the Oilers, you would look at that game and be like, well, the Jets should have won that like all day. I mean, they controlled roughly 65% of the shot differential. Expected goals was there. They had chances and they just they didn't finish in that game. I mean, outside of the two goals that they did have, but I mean, there was just no finish, especially in that third when they really poured it on. They were going. Their defense was activating. That team looked like they were a good team. And that's kind of the model that they need to play. And then you look, say at the other Edmonton game where they get the first one on Monday and they get severely outshot. Nothing seems to be working right, and they end up winning that game. It makes very little sense. It's a weird way to win. You could say it's against an Edmonton team where it's very back and forth. It's a high event hockey game. Lots of shots on both sides, lots of opportunities. But you can also look back to that Ottawa game where they probably should have won and then lost because they just couldn't finish. I think that's the biggest thing in all this is the Jets need to figure out, especially when they're pushing as hard as they were on Wednesday, how to finish more goals. Because if they can do that with all that elite talent, I think they have a much better team. And we can get into more like the defensive side of the game too. And I just thought in that game last night, there was a lot of activation from the defense, puck moving defensemen, which the Jets have sorely missed at times. They were going, the zone exits were getting crisper, everything was working well. The Jets just need more of that. You got to bottle that somehow and bring it into the next game.
Yeah, so they're 9-6-1. I feel like this pace of being a few games above 500 is a little bit unsustainable the way they're playing because they just haven't been consistent. They've
Yeah.
struggled. They've been outshot a lot. They've been outchanced a lot. They've had the shot differential not in their favor a lot. Those are all indicators usually that a team's not doing that well. But they continue to do reasonably well. They're winning every second game right now,
Yeah.
and there's no doubt about it. You talk about there not being quite enough finish there. Well, they don't have Patrick Laine anymore. He certainly would have helped because
Yeah.
that guy can really score. Jack Roslovic is clearly a player who's doing very well for the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Jets weren't going to have him anyway.
Yeah.
But they also haven't had Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's injured, had a long quarantine first. It's got to be frustrating for Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff to
Yeah.
have made a move like he made to acquire Dubois and really zero return for the Jets at this point while Laine and Roslovic are lighting it up in Columbus. Scott, I think he's coming back soon. But
Yeah.
do you think this is potentially going to be the kind of season where it's really going to take all year for Dubois to find his place?
Yeah, it might. It's a fair point to make and a fair argument to make that it just you kind of you get traded. I don't want to say like midway through the season. It was early on in the season, but I mean, he's missed pretty much. I don't want to say almost a quarter of a season. He's kind of missed just through injury, through quarantine. Not really playing that much in Columbus for a couple of games there before he was traded. So yeah, it could take a while. And it doesn't help that he's not playing. It doesn't help that he's injured. It doesn't help that you get back to kind of game shape after your quarantine, and then have to deal with a lower body injury of some sort. So yeah, it just, I mean, there just needs to be like a lot of things with this team, some consistency, and when he plays, he just has to play more. I don't think there's going to be an issue there once he's fully healthy. I think this is a guy that's going to help this team at both ends of the ice, but he can only do that when he's on the ice, and that hasn't happened yet. It might happen Friday. It's one of these really touch and go injuries where the team is being like uber cautious about it. They don't want it to flare up again, or to aggravate it again, playing or even practicing. And it's one of those seasons where, like, I mean, if you miss a week, you miss 3 or 4 games right now. So they want to minimize as much games that he's already missed. You want to mitigate as many more potential games that he could miss by just making sure he's back to 100%.
They're going to need him to be 100% and 100% effective in the stretch run and
Yeah,
potentially in the playoffs. That's really what they got him for. And, that's what that's what's going to work for them. We both used the word consistency. And I think what we were looking for more there was inconsistency, because that's
sure.
really what has been the case with the Jets so far. But a lot of that, in my mind, plays into the fact that Dubois has not been available. And even when he was available, the 2 games that he played, the lines were a complete mess. I mean, Paul Maurice, when I use the word he, I mean Paul Maurice, he threw out 4 different lines for the first game. Then he went 11-7.
Yeah,
A lot of a lot of changes and very, very little consistency in terms of who's playing with who on this team. When Dubois does come back, potentially Nate Thompson as well, they got to get 4 lines kind of consistently together and get them working, or else it's going to be like this all season. They've done an okay job so far, there's no doubt.
yeah.
But, you want to establish something, don't you?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you want to. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing in this game. I think this team has often had struggled with just keeping lines. I know you look at 3 years ago and the Connor Wheeler, the Scheifele line, but that's not anymore, and that's not and the line that you wanted to keep together, the Stasny line early on in the season with Ehlers and Kopp, it kind of when Pierre-Luc Dubois came back, I mean, they just kind of abandoned it. Obviously, I mean, here's a second line, even a top line center that you got to insert into your lineup somehow. And you're not moving Mark Scheifele from his post on the top line. So, that's exactly it. You got to find some chemistry, but 2 games isn't really going to do it for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Even just finding that, there's very little practicing right now. There's not a lot of anything that you can kind of really evaluate, like what the best, other than game situations, and that's probably why you see the blender a little more. I didn't agree with the 11-7 idea. I get why you have to do it though, because of Anton Forsberg being on the roster, and you can't send him down. You don't want to try and put Niku through waivers to get him cleared to the taxi squad, because you don't want to get him to get picked up. So you kind of forced your hand a little bit in that sense there, but yeah, it's really just going to be get some consistent time with him on whatever line, see what works, and then go from there. I think he showed flashes of being able to play with different players when he played. It's just there wasn't enough there to figure out, is it Ehlers, is it Connor, is it Stasny on the wing, is it Kopp, who is it, right? Like, I mean, I think that's where the big question marks still remain. And it's again, if it's Friday, if it's Sunday, whatever night it is, I mean, they're gonna have to probably, it's a lot of it is almost like trial by fire.
Yeah. New team, new teammates, new division, new style of play, new
Yeah,
coach. There's a lot going on there. It's kind of unfortunate, I think, for the Jets and for their fans. They have to be so patient about this,
um,
but that's really all they can do. The return is there. The Jets believe they've got the good
sure.
return in Pierre-Luc Dubois. You can't judge anything based on a couple of weeks. I know it's tough to watch when Jack Roslovic and Patrick Laine are doing so well,
Yeah,
but it's going to come eventually. And I'll tell you who it's coming for is Mark Scheifele. Been playing very good hockey this season.
yeah,
He's got points in 8 straight games. Really, there's a guy who's looked pretty consistent since early in the season. I thought his defensive game was a bit off early in the season. I think it's been a lot
yeah,
better lately. Don't you agree?
yeah. I mean, Mark Scheifele just looks engaged now, and I don't want to use that term in a light manner. It's not like Mark Scheifele probably wasn't engaged in those early games. It's just, I think for anybody this year, it took a little time to get into it. Now Scheifele's into it. He's on his 8-game point streak. I believe he's in the top 10 of NHL scoring, maybe even in the top 5 at the moment. But he's up there in terms of point production, and he's getting I think he's. I wouldn't say the top line's outstanding right now, but it's not bad either. They just, like a lot of teams, they or a lot of with his Jets, they have their good nights and they have their bad nights. But Mark Scheifele's shown that when they went to 11-7, this guy could play well with the fourth line. That he can play anywhere in the lineup, and he makes guys better when he's playing at the level that he can play at, and he's doing that now, and that's a big boost for the Jets. I mean, a lot of his points are 5-on-5. I think he only has one power play goal this year. And I think he has an empty net assist, maybe one empty net goal. But I mean, a lot of his points are coming 5-on-5, and that's really where the Jets need their production right now. The power play is what it is. It's not the same without Patrick Laine. There are some shots there. I mean, they've been using Scheifele and kind of lining his hole, and they've been using Kyle O'Connor on the other side. So it's an interesting power play, but it just, they don't have that booming point shot anymore. But it's, you want to see Mark Scheifele primarily getting a lot of those points 5-on-5. I mean, and driving that offense with this team. I mean, he's the top line center. That's kind of his job. It's going well for him right now. No real complaints about Scheifele's game at the moment.
Well, the Jets take on the Vancouver Canucks on Friday and Sunday, a couple more late games. So get your rest, folks, so you can stay up late and watch those ones. All the matchups, extremely important, all with playoff implications. This is nothing but an interesting season.
Well, and it's not. Yeah, and then just one thing on the Vancouver Canucks. It's not a pushover team anymore. I mean, this is a team that was losing a ton, but ever since owner Francisco Aquilani tweeted out his, put his backing behind Travis Green there, Jim Benning, GM. I think they're 2-1 now. They just won. They beat Calgary, I think 5-1.
When does that ever work? It's supposed to be the kiss of death.
I know. Yeah. Here's a Vancouver team that's going to pose a challenge, and not that they wouldn't before, but when you're in the midst of a pretty bad run like they were, it's easy to pick off wins against teams like that. Not the case anymore. I think they're going to run into a team that's it's going to be a challenge. I mean, these aren't all games against Ottawa, and the Jets are going to have to win these games and buckle down. So it'll be good to see how they face the Canucks, I believe, for the first time this year.
They lost to the Canucks at home already once.
That's right.
And they've also lost to the Ottawa Senators. So we know anything can happen, and we will keep watching it. For Scott Billeck, I'm Ted Wyman. You've been watching Jet Setting.